All right. Week 10. I am away. If you are watching this video, I'm likely away. I'm going to try to make this as clear as possible for your education. We have arrays to deal with today. We're also going to be tackling some images and GIFs, as well as a good amount of loops all in between. So let's get into that. For 10-1 this week, we're going to create and access items in the array, or in a array. So let's make some things. We'll call it creating and accessing items in arrays. So first things first, we will stay true to the amazing theme of October, and we're going to make some pumpkin weights. So we'll go in here and we'll declare an empty array. I think it's probably prudent that we go over what an array is as well. So let me dig into that a little bit before we start making things. But just to start out, we can write this down and to let pumpkin weights equal, and then you're going to do two little square brackets there. This is what holds an array, and we've dealt with this very briefly in the past, about maybe once, a very brief moment there. Digging into what an array is, though, is definitely important. So let's do that. So as you can see, if we had a box class of sorts, we're just kind of declaring 4 boxes and some structures and such. Perhaps different types of things, or maybe just the same thing that's being instanced over and over again. That would be something that an array would be useful for. So does typing in or pasting those commands out for so many objects hurt you? That's something I would ask yourself. Do you get arthritis? Do you get carpal tunnel? Well, no more of that. The array will assist you. What you can do is list things within that array index. The index is what is inside the square brackets. So you could have something that is numerical. You have any type of data really that could be held in there. So you could theoretically use strings and just objects themselves, or numbers. And you want to use an array to store things. So the score of 4 players in a game, just a selection of 10 colors, right, in a design. Anytime a program requires some kind of multiple instancing, that's generally when you would utilize an array index. So think on what you're making and think about if it actually needs an index. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Perhaps different fish you're calling upon, or you have days of the month you want to schedule in a program. An array is good for that. They're just very useful in general. It removes all that wonky copying and pasting and all that juicy nonsense. Accessing specific variables, also a beautiful thing you can do here. The first element in the array is always going to be 0, though, so always count 0 as 1. So if you have 10 pieces of data, It may be called 0, but it's still 10 even if you go up to 9, right? So 1 through 9 would be, 9, but 0 through 9 is 10. So just keep that in mind. Every array has a length. So your index being 0 to 9, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 10 pieces of data, index of 9. But the length is 10. So that's what we're talking about here. If you have 10 pieces of data, that's 10. The length is 10. The index is more or less just like the thing that's attached to the object or the instance that you're calling upon or the data that you're reflecting on, right? So 0 could represent, in our case, a pumpkin. 1 could represent another pumpkin, right? And that length goes up to 10, but the index is 0 to 9. Simple as that. So in our case, we are creating pumpkin weights. There's going to be that variable in play, in use, and we have assigned an empty array. This is something that is versatile, something we can utilize as we go along, so to speak. So they can generally be, these arrays can generally be declared anywhere you can declare a variable, basically. So naming rules as variable names go, definitely want to stick to lowercase. That is a nice general rule of thumb. And it looks like I clicked the wrong button on my mouse, so I've been shifted out into this way, into the sea of other exercises. All right, we're back in action here. So an array with 5 elements, you could be creating something that perhaps you have literal weights, 33 pounds, 55 pounds, 22 pounds, 11 pounds, 44. The index is still going to be 0 through, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 0 to 5, right? Length being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's actually 0 to 4. 0 to 4, so length being 5. 5 elements. The arrays all have a dot length property. And we can call upon this dot length and use it to our advantage. So if we're in our code here, in our program, we may say let pumpkin weights equal empty slot index. But what if we say pumpkin weights 0? It's likely going to be able to call upon whatever that value is in a later part of the program. So we've, sort of defined that index value as 0, 22 point, at 0, and the value being 22.1. And then for index value 1, we have defined it to be a value of 13, and so on and so forth. So you're initializing an array with data. Retrieving and setting individual elements. These are some tests you can do. So if you are indeed, if you do have some odd numbers in mind, perhaps, a program that's looking for odd numbers, you could define those numbers and sort them out. Generally speaking, though, if we're getting away from the pumpkins and the odd numbers, an array is a list of data. It's possible to have an array of any kind of data, so you could have an array where each piece of data in it is identified by an index number representing its position in the array, hence the 0, 1, 2, 3, right? The second element being 1 and so on. So 0 being the first, second being 1, third being 2, right? That's how it works. But that property dot length is probably your where you're going to really form a relationship and a sort of middle mitigation sort of a mitigator or middleman, middle person will be there to scoop up the info. So if we're saying dot length, that could refer to the entire array, but you can also, kind of call upon that dot length in a different way, in a more specific way. So, last value in this example here could be a length of 5 if there are 0 to 4 elements, right? Like we just talked about. Let's say 4 is the last portion of that array. It would be something like array.length minus 1. So, that last value in an array with a length of 5 should be referenced as array 4, which means array.length minus 1, right? The length is 5, so you want to get to 4. And that, that if you use 5, it's going to trigger some error, and you don't want that. Just not useful, right? Using loops to initialize similar data. So, in this case, and we can kind of dig into this, let's actually dig into that once we do a little bit more programming, and we'll come back to it. But now that we have the definition of an array, and what it does, it holds data, you can call upon it. It's a sort of index of sorts, and it has a literal length to which you can utilize as a middle person or a middle robot to go grab the data. So back at it here. With pumpkin weights, let's just do a little bit of something where we call upon things. So console call console.log, and let's do empty array comma pumpkin weights. Look out for the syntax there. We should get some printout here. It's going to say, I don't know, it's an empty thing. There are no things within. And if I were to do something like this, where I say, oh, well, what about the length of this empty array? Console.log array length pumpkin weights dot length. So that's how you would call upon it. And it'll print out the empty length, which would be 0. The empty array length is 0. Makes sense? Yes, it does. Very simple. Moving further down the chain of creation here, what if we start assigning some literal weight registration data? So this pumpkin weighs 12 pounds, this pumpkin weighs 1 pound. It's a mini pumpkin. I shall smash these pumpkins and amalgamate a pumpkin soup of some sort. Well, the higher the weight, the less pumpkins you need. So maybe you want to sort through which are the heaviest pumpkins to make this wild pumpkin soup. So I can only use 1 pumpkin so that I only use 1 pumpkin versus 2, right? So let's do it. Pumpkin weights. Grab your square brackets, and then we'll go with 33 12, 6, 9, 28, and 4. A little bit random, but it's you know, combing through the data nonetheless. 33 being the thickest and healthiest and most robust of weighted pumpkins. Console.log array with contents, comma, pumpkin weights. And this should print out everything that's within. It does, 33 being the highest, and then down the chain, array with contents. We can also decipher the array length. What is the length of this array? Array length, por favor. Pumpkin weights dot length. And now if we press play, looks like we have a length of 6, and that'll help us moving forward. We can also call upon the arrays, the index itself versus the length. So let's say we want to jump into a certain value. Let's call upon one of those index items from 0 to 5. Actually, it'd be 0 to 5. So we would say something like console.log. Let's say I want to grab item number 3. I would then utilize my lovely, pumpkin weights array 3. So I'm actually calling upon that portion of the index, and it should give me the appropriate number, being 9, 0, 1, 2, 3, and 9. So we are good on that. Lovely. Moving along here. What happens when you start utilizing these arrays as a means towards maybe adding or subtracting or just utilizing a math function alongside the array? So if I were to go to pumpkin weights, and then I call upon 3 again, index 3 within the array, and let's try a math function like plus equals 10. So what happens to the array now? What the heck is going on? What is the value of 3 now? It's sort of obvious, right? You could probably wager that something will be added. Something like 10 will be added to whatever item number 3 is. And we can get to it. So that means that we can call upon it and get that answer by going to console.log. What is item number 3 now, ? And we'll go in here and we'll say pumpkin weights square bracket 3, and then we'll press play. Oh, it's 19. What do you know? How did you do that? Not too bad. It's very simple. But also, I'm well aware that sometimes it's hard to remember all this information, right? So keep those notes and slides close. That is why I have them on my courses in the modules, so that you can relax and feel a little bit more confident about what the heck is what in this world of programming. I know it's a pain in the bootay, but you gotta do what you gotta do out here. All right. Let's dig into some more index items. what if we add things to an index array? What the heck happens? Like, what if I don't really want it to only be 6 items anymore? I'd much rather it be that it is maybe 9 or 10 items, right? How do you add to your index is the moral of the story here. Add new items to the end of an array. This is how you do it. Pumpkin weights. Then give it a number for the index value, and then give you the index value an actual value. Perhaps the weight of the pumpkin is 8 at this point in the array. Feel free to copy and paste. We'll just add 3 or something like that. So now this array value could be 7. And then the weight, perhaps, of this pumpkin is 17. We can then give the array value of 8 since it's next in the succession, and another weight value, perhaps 21, to great ripe age of transformation and existential crises. Console.log array with more contents. That is what this is all about. Pumpkin weights. Bada bing. What happens now? Well, let's call upon it and see. Press play. Look at that. We have added to the array. The index is larger. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 9 is the length. 8 is the index array. Let's get the length of that just in case, we're imagining that we don't trust the system. Definitely give yourself some string there because that's what we need. All right. Lovely. What happens now? Well, in the console, it is as we have deciphered prior, the length is now 9. If you were to give it another one, like an 80-pound pumpkin, watch out, that's going to get you. You'll also note that these will change. There's your 80-pound pumpkin there. There is the new array length. Notice that this array length didn't quite update, and that's just because it comes prior to this one. Just be aware of how things are stacked, how things are layered. That's all I ask. And we could go on and on, right? Now, if you wanted to call upon, perhaps one of these items, you would just repeat the process of pumpkin weights 3. What is item number 3, right? What is item number 6, perhaps? So console.log item number 6, question mark, and then we would go in here and pumpkin weights square bracketies number 6. What is it? Beep. It is 8. And that it is. We would be going through and 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Cool. It's counting it up from 0. And you could go on and on. I mean, can you skip ahead in an index? No, not really. You still need something there. You can't just skip on ahead. So if we did, let's see what happens, right? And this is something you can play around with as well. So equals 13 perhaps. Console.log an array with gap. Pumpkin weights. Yeah. Not really great, right? It can happen, but it's not exactly good practice. Be careful with that. I can throw some issues later on down the line, and you just want to be aware of where you're at and what you're doing. Always give some kind of value so things don't go bonkers on you. That's the moral of the story. Or at least I hope the moral is that story. The story is that moral. Switch words around and you will go far in life. People will not know what to do with you. Word of advice. Your daily tangent concluded. All right, so that's that. I have given you the array of life. Gonna stop here, and we shall check the time. I'll notate that, and I'll put it in the mix of the chapters for YouTube. Thank you. All right. So I've paused. I've notated the time of 26:50. That is the time that we have paused here. And you should be able to get back to that specific demo by searching within that 0 to 26 minute timeline. Now we're going to dive into the loops for creating and accessing items in arrays. As discussed, it can be done. Loops run while, in this case, I is between 0 and the desired length of the array. Definitely best for adding data that is either the same or can be calculated. That's why we would get into that and utilize an array as a solution. So the solution being const. And we can understand what const is by simply thinking about the term that it defines, which is constant. This is going to hold the, in our case, apples. And then the for loop will call upon that constant as apples. Apples I, in this case. So we're making a sort of empty array, and then we're plugging in our local variable that we're utilizing for the for loop to then access some type of length or some type of randomized sweetness in this case, right? We just want a value of sweetness in our lives. What is the value of sweetness between 40 and 100? Well, if it's randomized, we'll never know until we know. So let's get into that and make some for looped arrays of randomized sweetness. Fill your array with 7 apples. That is what I would like to do. 7 apples to be measured in sweetness. So we'll go in here, we'll define our program. What the heck is this thing about? Utilizing for loops to to access items in an array. Do we need a global variable of any sort? Kind of. Let's use a constant. Let's dig into what the heck that is, right? Using const to prevent reassignment. So this means like this thing that we're creating is constant. You cannot reassign things to it. It is literally constant. It will never be changed. I will never allow the change to occur. Hence, constant. Let's make that. So here's our constant, const, and apples equal empty array. And for the setup, we'll keep it quite simple, but we are going to fill the array with 7 apples, within which this apple will be embodied. They will sort of be defined in sweetness through this for loop. So for, we'll let I equal 0. Remember those semicolons in between the variable initialization, the condition, the change, right? All that stuff. So let's let I equal 0 and then do I less than 7. Whoops. Semicolon and then I plus plus. So we're just adding one in incremental order. And then within here, we will start test for less than 7. Add 1 until 7 reached. We can tackle this by putting something important in the statement. So in this statement here, we're going to say apples, square brackets. We're utilizing the const here. We'll say I equals, and in our case, random between 40 and 100. That could be any number. If you don't want 40 to 100, I understand. But yes, that's what we're using here. After which, we can go ahead and say console.log. This is after the for loop. Below it, let's utilize a string here. Apples, colon, and comma, apples. Pressing play in the Luxuriant Sandal program, we get a bunch of things. What are we getting? Wowza, we got a lot of goodies here. So this is interesting. I have actually done something by accident. I did 40 through 100. What I really meant to do is 40, 100. And that what happened was it just subtracted from 40 from 100, it looked like, or something like that, and or 100 from 40, and yeah, it basically was only dealing in negatives. We want to go in between 40 and 100. It would be great if it was intuitive and it was actually like through 100. Unfortunately, that also means minus, so gotta do what you gotta do. And there we are. We have 54.444. I'm not a huge fan of the insane decimal places, personally. So, you know, we may tackle some things in that regard moving forward. I'm just gonna get rid of some stuff here. So 40, 100. We'll keep it at that. I'm not going to worry about digging into decimal stuff at the moment. Now, within draw, I wouldn't mind changing the color of the canvas based on my mouse. I think it'll just be fun as an added layer of interaction. So we can place background in here. We will then mouse Y 200 and 100. This way we get a little bit of change. Could also do mouse X for that blue portion there. Whoa. That's nice. Okay. Just for fun, iterate over a certain amount of time. Definitely important. A loop control value will be needed for this. So let's say we're making apples, like not measuring sweetness, but just literally making the apples themselves. Perhaps we'd want to do something where 0 is, or rather a for loop is necessary to form a series of circular apples. We would likely identify what the length is, and then increase 1 every turn. So if we were to create a for loop in draw, we could do something like this, where it's a for and let I equal 0, semicolon, I less than apples dot length. So now we're utilizing the length that we have pretty much created right here to create iterative apples. So we're also going to kind of measure utilize those sweetness values to our advantage. So now we would say I plus plus. What do we want to plus plus though? What do we want to instance, right? Well, it's going to be a circular object, ellipse, and it'll be at 50, 20 on the X and the Y. You can kind of put it wherever you want, really. Maybe 25. I don't know. Up to you. 25 plus 40. You could do that. Multiplied by I. It goes on and on, right? Now, one thing that's very important is this. The apples, you need to call the array. So apples I. So we're looking at the length, which is indeed 7. But yeah, we have basically I will go through 8 items, right? Because or rather 7 items, because the length is 7. So we should get approximately 7 ellipses out of this. At least that's what I would imagine. Feel free to color your ellipse. Do whatever you'd like with that. I actually may also go ahead and color my ellipse because I like to color ellipses. Fill. Sky blue. If I were to press play, oh, there they are. There are my ellipses all cascading downward. Nice. And now I actually may let's say I want to space these out a bit more, I might actually go ahead and lessen the randomization numbers to like 10 and 30, just so that they're not overlapping, and there you are. Lovely. We'll save our luxuriant sandal as is. I have a separate demo link I'll be giving to you so that you have that available. Cool? Good. Moving on to the next exercise, we'll pause here at 40 minutes, and I will be back after a brief lunch. All right. We are back at it here. 40 minutes and 27 seconds. On to the arrays plus split. We will definitely be going through a couple things here. One being the split method. If we go back up to where we started here, this is the crazy thing we're getting into. Strings as primitives, strings as arrays, and arrays of strings. Lots of strings, lots of arrays, lots of strings and arrays. You can use a string, as you know, to call upon color, to call upon a form of text or word, or you can use a string to, essentially define something and use it as a value of sorts, right? Well, guess what? You can use strings with your arrays. Crazy, right? Crazy. Let's dig into some of that. So when using your method or properties with a string literal, JavaScript automatically converts it to a temporary string object. So all of a sudden the string is now an object, not just some value. Calls the method and or property, then discards the temporary object. You can look at more here at this link for grammar and types. Dot length property. Yes, it is an index num that you can access. It's not a problem. You can do that. It's pretty cool. So we may use it in an if statement. You can use it in a for loop, whatever you wish, really. In the end, it works. As a primitive or object type, you could say let message MSG equal danger. Let accum equal blank string. Accum, maybe accumulate, right? Plus equals MSG plus this space. Accum plus equals MSG plus string no question mark. All of a sudden you have danger, no. Concatenate strings with the addition operator. Adding them together, let hey equal danger, exclamation point. Let whoa equal danger, exclamation point. And then compare them. Whoa equal type value to hey, console.log equal. Right? That's what it is. And if not, whoa, less. Right? Less danger. Whoa, more danger. I don't know. You just use your imagination there. So let's get into the code itself. I think that's a better way to define what we're doing here. Go ahead and re-reference these, for your compare strings. To compare strings, rather. So you can use the equals, equal type, equal value, does not equal, less than, greater than, equal to, etc., etc. You can use these operators with strings. So it's cool in that regard. And we'll get a little deeper into that slideshow via the code itself. I think that's the best way to approach this. Starting off, we don't need too much. I do want to gather a little bit of info for you here. There are a few things. So obviously this is, if we were to define the program, it would be strings primitives, arrays, plus strings, the dot split method. You may also see this, so char. What is char? It is a function used to convert the given string or number value into its corresponding single character, hence the char. C-H-A-R, character, right? That's how you could remember it. And that would be a string representation. So the char is for character. Give it a little local variable, so we'll say let salutation equal welcome to the jungle. Local variable. And now if we use a string as an array, what does that look like? What does that look like? Console.log length. Salutation.length. Whoops, I want to put that actually after this. Keeping in mind, we don't actually have anything really there yet. There's nothing to note here, but we are going to call upon that string. So if we do that, press play, 21. Look at that, crazy, right? So in a sense, this is sort of like an array, or at least it's acting like an array, and that you can call upon its length. And that's cool. You can actually use that to your advantage in many maybe abstract or experimental things, perhaps even more logical things. What if we say console.log and we go in here and we say char at 10. Char meaning character. Character at 10. What is it? Well, then you would place here, comma, salutation. Get your brackets out, those square ones. Bring it on down into the print area. Char at 10. Nothing's really going on there. Interesting. Okay. Maybe we should give it something. We'll do that eventually. Or perhaps it's a space. Yes, it is. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Wait, what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Oh, no, it isn't. It's a 0. Oh, wait. It is a space. Because of how the length and index is governed. And there you go. Remember, length is different than index. So that explains that, right? Little trick thing there for you. Maybe it'll help you remember something. Probably not, but it was fun anyways. What could be? Let's say we want to call upon the end of something in an array or in an actual string, in our case. In that case, we would say something like this: console. We don't even have to worry about the numbering or anything like that. Just this is what it is, type of thing, right? So what we can say is char at end, space and comma, salutation, dot length, -1. What is it? What is it? What is it? Zoink. It's an E. So nice. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Why do we use negative -1? Well, we already went over that. Just kidding. You have to basically keep in mind that the length is different than the index value. The length here being a certain number. So when you do -1, it's taking into account the length, but also the index. So it's just kind of subtracting back to that last string letter, which is E. And that is how it works. Can you edit a string like an array? That, I guess, would be our next thing. So can we edit string like array? Question mark. Salutation. Square bracket 10 equal. Maybe we put like a beep, beep, beep in there. All right, let's check it out. So if it's, what am I doing here? There we go. If it's oh my, oh my. So now, yeah, so now what we'll do, it will say console, excuse me, that log, salutation still. Is it really what it is? Are we in this world together? I have no idea. Definitely want to get rid of that extra thing there. And I'm just going to write salutation. And we're going to see if this takes an effect on our array. If it does, that's great. If it doesn't, then, well, now we know what we got to fix here, right? We know that it doesn't work. Doesn't change it. So there's your answer. You can't edit a string like an array, unfortunately, but it can act like an array sometimes, but not completely. So just keep that in mind, all right? What if we do something strange where we try a different way? Perhaps we say salutation square brackets salutation dot length, and then we just write well, in JavaScript, the not sign. What happens? So in order to see what happens, console.log salutation present still salutation. It is still present. All is well in the neighborhood of the jungle, and the salutation is there. You can add strings, however. So let's say we are in a need for string, a need for more string. You can do that. Salutation, this is how you do it, plus equals. Suppose you could use another type of thing if you wanted to, but we'll use that math operator here. Bring out those quotation marks, and we'll say we have fun and games. Alright, let's just see what happens there. Do a little console.log on that. Put your parentheses in. Add it. Welcome to the jungle. We have fun and games. So you can indeed add these things. It's a lovely, lovely, lovely way of playing around and making it work. What if we want to split some things up? Let's get away from this whole string array thing slightly. Not completely, but I just want to introduce you to a new method that should give us a little bit of insight into how we might split things up in an array. So you can call upon things, but maybe you want to split an array and get something separated out or do something in particular to that split up thing. We can perform that by using the split method. So split method time. It comes in the form of a dot split parentheses. That's how it works. So returns array of strings, but takes the spaces out. So it's something that happens with this particular method. It's going to give us some room here. All right. So let's give another local variable for the split here. Let cell split array. It's going to equal salutation.split. We will get some parentheses in there. We'll put a little space in there. And this in particular is going to grab those spaces and essentially get rid of them. That's why we chose a space. So that's what we're going to do right now. You can do other things too. That's one thing that you can do, is take spaces out. You can also take O's or the E or the W. All those can be taken out too, not just spaces. Just want to make sure that's clear because I don't think I was clear on that. You can do it in many different ways, or use it in many different ways. Console.log, we will split space. Sol split array. So let's check this out. It's a little simple thing, but it will indeed do it. There it is. We have split up the space. So it's taken out and separated each word as its own string. Kind of cool in many ways, because it's and also very powerful. So what happens when we split something like the O? What's that going to look like? So that'll look like a little bit something like this. So sal split array equals salutation dot split, parentheses there. We'll put it not that, but an O, and it should indeed kind of split some O's, so to speak. So let's make sure that happens. Console.log. We will put a string in here that says split O, just to identify what's going on. All right, and comma after that to say sal split array. That should give us what we're looking for, which is the split O. And there she is. All the O's have been essentially eliminated and split out of the equation. Kind of interesting. And you could continue on. Remember that you can also try out different things, like what if we utilized the other version of string, right? Still works. Now, if you do a split, you're going to end up getting, well, if you do a split and you don't have anything in between that string, like let's say it's just this, right? You just have, literally, you haven't placed a space in there. It's not going to know to look at spaces, right? So what's it going to do? It's going to do this. All of a sudden, everything becomes one character at a time, and your index array is now like 46 long. It's basically dividing each character into its own little array index value. You can also do something like this, where you literally have absolutely nothing split. What happens with that? Well, that. Basically, it's just exactly where you left off. Welcome to the jungle. We had fun and games. There's no difference there in any kind of. There's no split, right? So that's the moral of the story for splits, arrays, primitives, and arrays and splits, and strings and arrays. It was a very large title, but I hope you got the gist. We will stop it here at 1 hour exactly. I'm going to go ahead and jump into the next exercise momentarily.